Hi, everybody. My name is Garrett Rice. I'm with Callings.ai. We provide a AI-powered total job hunt platform, and our goal is to provide all the tools and workflows, what is now a very complicated process in the modern job hunt. And so I'll go through that at the end, but I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce Nicole Kelley. Nicole spent more than a decade in tech before she started coaching. She worked inside big enterprise organizations like Amazon, and she worked at the other end of the spectrum for pre-seed startups here in the Bay Area. She's built teams from nothing, scaled them, and closed seven-figure deals all the way through years of fast growth. Over the years, she's led across pretty much every function you can name: sales, customer success, product design, marketing, operations. These days, she coaches executives at companies like OpenAI and Shopify, along with a lot of high growth startups. And the through line in it all is she helps talented people stop underselling themselves and start actually leading their own careers with clarity and conviction. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole, and she can talk about how you can build the story that gets you hired. Welcome, Nicole.
Thanks, Garrett. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. Garrett and I have known each other for a bit now. I have really enjoyed our work together, and I'm super impressed by the Callings platform. And actually, everyone who's looking for a job through that part of my coaching uses the Callings AI platform in complement to the coaching that I do with them. So it's really great that we've been able to build this partnership. And today we get to talk about storytelling. We get to talk about how to leverage tools like callings to power our story, and also how the personal layer of a story really folds nicely on top in today's market. So with that, I think we'll get started. Maybe my slide moves. There we go. So tell me about yourself. Let's go ahead and put in the chat. How many of you have been asked this question before in an interview, in a networking conversation? And when you're asked this question, what happens in your body? Share something in the chat. Like, is it is it stress? Is it pressure? Is it blank? Is it freezing? Is it excitement? Everyone has all kinds of different reactions to this. Yeah, deer in headlights, I see exactly, right? It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to answer this now? Always stress. Yeah, totally. Pressure, freeze, exactly. So this is the first invitation that a lot of us get to tell our story. And a lot of times it happens in a formal interview setting. A lot of times it happens over coffee with a friend or reconnecting with a colleague that you used to work with. Sometimes it's presented in a setting where you're expected to answer start to finish, like all at one time. Here's my story in a nutshell. Other times it's the start of a conversation in a two-way street, kind of back and forth. So there's all of these different contexts where we get to tell our story. Today, we're going to talk about really putting together a story that makes you stand apart. It sets you out in a crowd. It leaves a lasting impression. Those are all things that we're trying to do when we're looking for a new job, right? The candidate pool is full these days. There are a lot of people looking for other opportunities, either because they're out of work or they're sensing that they're not totally satisfied or fulfilled where they are. And the barrier to entry to find new jobs has really lowered. So it's really easy for us to submit an application online, to use tools like AI to help us write a resume and drop it somewhere online. And so because of that, we're seeing this influx of resumes and applications, and it's becoming harder and harder to really stand out. And so, one of the reasons that I love talking about telling your story and I love helping people write their stories is because I think this is one of the reasons that people get hired, truly. Hiring managers and recruiters are looking for personality. They're looking for loyalty and dedication, and they want to understand what kind of a team player you're going to be. And so when we get asked this question, tell me about yourself, it's the open door to this chance that we each have to really set ourselves apart in a unique way and tell our story that is going to seed the relationship and the lasting impression that could follow and lead to great opportunities down the line. Just a note as we're going, there are a couple opportunities here where I'm going to ask you guys to engage in the chat and share your thoughts. And at that point, I will check and read what's going on in the chat. I won't be following it otherwise, but Garrett is here keeping tabs on it as we go. So if you need anything, you're welcome to communicate with us that way too. Three things that we want to communicate when we're answering this question, tell me about yourself. We start to tell our story. Number one, we want to be authentic. There are too many ways that technology and robots can tell the exact same story or use the exact same tone, the exact same form of communication. And so what I love about this process is that we get to layer in the personality and the uniqueness and the fluctuation and the tone and all of those things that make us us on top. And so we want that to come through when we're telling our story. We want that authentic nature, that groundedness, and that sense of self to really come through. Number two, be relevant. If you're pitching yourself for a job, if you're trying to provide value to a team, you need to communicate how you're going to help them solve a problem that they care about. How are you going to be valuable to them and their team and their company and their mission? And number three, be clear and be concise. So we've all been in a conversation with someone where they're kind of rambling or they go on and on. We get distracted, we lose focus. It's hard to keep up with what they're saying. And so in this moment where you have this invitation to tell your story, what you get to do now and through this webinar today is really figure out how do you want to be intentional with the words that you're using and the way that you're reflecting yourself through your story. Being clear and concise is really important when you're doing that. So I also, before we get too far into this, want to debunk some myths. So one of the biggest questions I get, or pieces of pushback that I get through coaching people is, well, I have this gap in my career, or I haven't always taken promotions as I've been going. Like my career has kind of taken some weird twists and turns. How do I talk about that? I'm not sure I really want to talk about that. And I just want to start by saying no one's story fits into this mainstream career narrative that we all imagine. I actually have never met someone who had a totally straight and narrow path all the way through their career, as we learn in school, or many of us would believe is the should path to follow. So when we recognize that, we can actually turn that dynamic around and use some of those gaps in those chapters that make our career path unique to our advantage. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I also want to introduce this opportunity to start by taking a deep breath. So actually, let's go ahead and do that all together right now. If you're listening to this webinar, wherever you are, just pause first with an exhale, let everything out, exhale even longer than you think you need to. And then really take a deep breath, like feel your whole body inflate and fill up with air through your chest and your rib cage. And then let it out. And notice what that exercise, just that one breath, does to your body. It gives you space. There's a lightness that comes with it. You can share in the chat. What did just awareness of that one breath bring to you in this moment? That sort of spirit and that sort of energy is what we want to bring when we're telling our story. Because if this is an opportunity to build relationships and be authentic and show our personality alongside our skill sets and our expertise, then we have to slow down long enough that those parts of us can actually come through and be communicated. There's so much about the job search that feels like it's a performance. It feels like we're put on stage. We have to check all these boxes. We have to meet all these expectations and these criteria of different roles. And I get it. I've been there. I coach people through that every day. And I also want to name that it doesn't have to be a performance. And actually, if we treat the job search process and the way that we tell our story not like a performance, but more authentically, then the likelihood that we land in a job that we love and we don't have to go through this whole process again actually increases. We have a higher chance of finding a company that really is a good match for the long term when we show up as ourselves and treat the interview process and the job search process as a two-way street. There are a ton of people out there that tell their story by reciting their resume. And as you're doing that, it becomes very repeatable. It becomes like the thing that everyone hears, right? If you're a recruiter and you're listening to someone tell their story, it's almost expected at this point. Well, I spent 5 years here, then I moved here, then I did this, and then I did that, and now I'm looking for this. And if you can disrupt that expectation, if you can catch them off guard a little bit and catch their attention by doing that, then you have the chance to really leave a lasting impression and set yourself apart from all of the other interviews and conversations that they might be having. So that's one of the overarching themes that we're really trying to get into today. Let's talk about the market. So this is absolutely an AI-driven market. We are inundated with AI job opportunities, AI tools out there to help us do our job better, to help prepare ourselves better and present ourselves better. The biggest thing that I like to remind people is that skills are teachable and personality is not. And so, as hiring managers and recruiters are looking for people to fill these open roles in today's market, they know that. We know that we can teach someone how to do something that they might not know how to do, but we cannot teach someone how to be energetic or passionate or dedicated. We can't teach them how to be scrappy or resilient or sharp and kind of that stick-to-itiveness that we all know is great when we think about some of our favorite people that we've worked with in the past. So when we're putting our story together for this market, AI has incredible tools, and the Callings platform is one of them. It helps us organize our thoughts. It provides a mirror for us, like, here's what I'm thinking, help me organize this. It provides a foil that we can react to, like, hey, here are some ideas. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But what we can't get rid of is that human piece that comes on top. And that's the essence of us, the personality and the spark that really makes it unique. And so this exercise really is about combining the ways that AI can make our life more efficient and more productive with that commitment to personality and spark that we get to layer on top to help set ourselves apart and create that connection, that sense of humanness. So 3 things that we're trying to get across through our story. One, we're trying to build relationships. We're trying to open doors with people. We're also trying to express our personality. We're trying to help them get to know us and really imagine what it would be like to work with us every day on their team. And 3, we're trying to leave lasting impressions. So even after the call has ended, they've closed their door, they've closed their computer, they're on to the next interview, whatever it is. We want the hiring manager, the person we talk to at the end of the day, to remember what it was like to talk to us earlier in that day, what parts of our story were really unique and resonant for them so that they come back to us. Because if they're facing a pile of like 20 or 100 resumes in their inbox or on their desk, and they remember that one person that really stood out, that's the way to accelerate yourself to the top of the pack and to really stand out in a crowded market and in a crowded interview process. So what are the basics? What is a story and what is it not? Your story is a reflection of patterns across your work. We're going to talk more about this in a little bit, but it's a curation. You are not obligated to tell every part of every experience that you've ever had in your career. In fact, it's pretty dry and it kind of gets boring. And so what you are invited to do in telling your story and what can set you apart is when you really take time to curate. What have I stood for throughout my career? What experiences, what really lights me up? Like, what do I love doing? Okay, those are the things that I'm going to highlight when I tell my story. Your story is also a set of proof points that make your values and your purpose credible. It's like, I say I'm good at this thing, and now I'm going to give you evidence that I actually am good at it, and that I actually have done it before, and that I actually succeeded doing it before, so I can do it for you. And number 3, it's an articulation of why someone should care about you joining their team. So why you? What do you bring to the table that is unique? A lot of people come up with values, which we'll get to in a minute, like, I really care about integrity. I really care about community, collaboration, working with other people. That's awesome. What about collaboration? What about community makes you unique? What version of collaboration are you going to bring to their team that someone else is not going to? That's what we're going for. What is your story not? It is not a resume in paragraph form. It is not like a chronological deep dive into your career. You do not have to air dirty laundry. You do not have to share things that you don't want to share in your story. You get to write this. You are the author of your story. You are the leader. I also run a program. You are the CEO of your career. And so as a CEO does, as a business leader does, you get to own this and really take control of what details and experiences to include and which ones to leave out. It's not a list of accomplishments. Your accomplishments are going to come through your story. And actually, they're often going to come through when people start to ask you questions about, oh, wait, you mentioned this. What did that look like for you? Or tell me more about that. Then there's this further kind of opening of the door and invitation to share more. The goal of your story, especially the beginning of it, is to hook people in and gather their attention and ask for more of their attention. And if you succeed in asking for more of their attention, then you're going to be able to share, here are the things that make me unique, here are the accomplishments I've had, here are the ways that I stand out. But if we just run through those accomplishments straight through from the top of our story, it's kind of like we're kind of putting them in a deer in headlights position back, right? They're like, okay, I got it. I think, wow, you sound really successful. How does that fit into my context? Or how do I really like wrap my head around that? So we want to kind of lead them in to this idea of sharing your accomplishments. And number three, it's not a brand statement. This isn't like a marketing exercise where you have to like put on, makeup and a fancy outfit and all this kind of stuff. I really want to encourage you guys to be authentic about this. This is a reflection of you, who you are as a person. It doesn't need to be anything artificial that you're crafting around yourself. If you can really resonate with that feeling of like, this is my story. I am so excited about this. This is what I stand for. And here's how I've brought that to life in my career. That passion is going to come through in the person that you're talking to. It's going to make a big difference. So back to this topic. All career paths have gaps. They have twists and turns. Here's how, just straight from the beginning, I'm going to recommend that we handle these. Number one, name it and own it. We're not going to shy away from it. We're not going to hide it. We are going to talk about why that gap or that twist or that turn was taken intentionally or not intentionally. It was a layoff that turned into this. It was a choice to leave that turned into that. We're then going to connect it back to one of the pillars of our story, and we'll get into pillars a little bit later, but we're going to explicitly say how that gap or that chapter that looks a little bit different than maybe what society expects actually works to my advantage and actually benefits me and would benefit you if I were to join your team, interviewer. And then we're going to explain why it's an additive experience. So was there any consulting work that you were doing? Was there any advisory work that you were doing? Was there any work that you were doing learning new cultures, traveling the world? There's always a way to spin some of the experiences that you've had into something that could be valuable. And so rather than shying away from it, we can really lean into it and use it to our advantage as a part of our chapter and a part of our story. Are you recovering from burnout so that you could return even stronger? That's a really real story. Like I've worked myself to the ground. I've experienced burnout and I personally have, and that actually is what led me to coaching. That's why I now run my career this way. I've worked at companies where I burn myself out and I'm not able to show up and do the work that's expected of me. I've learned not to do that again. Here are the boundaries that I set and why. That's a leader talking. That's an authority talking, right? Like you understand what could go wrong and you're working to bring the best version of yourself to the work that you do from here forward. Authenticity over performance. We've talked about this a little bit as part of our foundation already, but one thing that's really important to highlight here is that the way that you tell your story is just as important as the content of what you're saying. So just as much as someone is looking for particular skill sets, perhaps on a checklist or other rubric that they've been given, they're also consciously or subconsciously sometimes listening for, do I like this person? Can I connect with them? Do they know what they're talking about? Can I sense that passion? What would they be like to work with on a team? Some people talk about in the job searching recruiting space, like the airline test, like the airplane test. Like, could I sit next to this person on an airplane, across the Atlantic Ocean? If not, we probably shouldn't hire them at our company. We used to use that at one of the startups I worked for. So this is the idea that you're expressing through your story, yes, your skill set, yes, your experiences and your accomplishments and the things that you're good at and have achieved, and also who you are. And so when you show up as someone who really knows yourself and you show up grounded and with confidence and with authority, it paints you in a really positive light to the person that you're talking to. And it actually can be something that sets you apart and makes you stand out at the end of the day when the recruiter or the interviewer is thinking like, what were all the conversations I had today? You know what? I don't actually remember what Nicole said. I think she said she was good at this, that, and the other, but I really remember her confidence. Like that really stuck with me. She obviously knows what she's talking about. She could be really great on our team, right? That's like kind of how our mind processes, especially when we're having so many conversations and doing so many things in a given day. So you don't need a perfect story. You just need an honest one and a grounded one. And people are going to be drawn to you when you show up with that level of authenticity and that sense of confidence as you're speaking. Okay. Every hook, every story, every good story has a great hook, right? We read novels, we watch movies, we all know there's something in the beginning that really grabs our attention. And we probably also have the experience of like, oh yeah, I started that show a while back, but it really didn't catch my attention. And then you're talking to someone, they're like, no, just stay with it. It gets really good, right? We want to be the version of the story where the hook is first. Like we want to grab someone's attention and pull them in and take them with us along this journey that is our story. So one way to do that is to try this. And I'm going to actually give you guys like a minute or so to do this yourself. So grab a piece of paper, pull out your phone with a little note on it. I want you to start by thinking of a memory. So think of a time in your work or in your life, it doesn't have to be work related, when you felt really proud and fulfilled and like a best version of yourself. Think about details like where were you? What were you doing? What mattered to you in those moments? It could even be like, what music were you listening to? Or what was the environment like? Were you inside or outside? Was there certain sounds or smells around you? Take a minute and just jot down, brainstorm this and come up with one memory, write some details down about it. All right. And go ahead and share in the chat as you guys are coming up with ideas. Share with the chat a couple of details about it. So where were you in that moment? Or what's something that stands out to you about that moment? And then start to think of 3 to 5 values that were reflected in that moment. If you don't want to share a detail of the experience, that's totally fine, but maybe share one of the values that's coming up. So, in that moment when you were feeling so proud and so fulfilled, what was one detail that stood out to you? Or what was one value that that moment reflected? Could be things like laughter, fun, creativity. You don't have to overthink it. Probably the first few things that come to mind are going to be sufficient. Yeah, creative. Oh, working in Waikiki and you felt fearless. I love that one. Curiosity and excitement. Okay, these are great. So keep that experience in mind and you have some notes about it somewhere. We're going to come back to it. That's going to be one of the ways that we start to actually craft our story. So keep that in mind. We'll come back to it. When we think about answers to that question, tell me about yourself, we want to focus on bottom lining a few different things. And we're going to actually go through the structure of how to write out your story and how to organize it like in an outline form. But before we get there, there's a few things that we know we want to communicate through bottom lining. So what do you consistently do well? And these can also be prompts. to help you think about some of those peak experience, like that moment you felt like so on top of the world and so proud of yourself. What do you consistently do well in your career? What are you known for? Then we're going to translate that in our story and we're going to communicate, why does that skill set matter now? What's the relevance of it to the person that you're talking to or the company that you're talking to? And then because you're good at that thing, what does that make possible next? So we're going to make sure that our story also has a future orientation to it. Actually, rather than running back through the chronology of our whole resume and our history of job experience, we're going to intentionally make our story forward looking. The story that we're writing is going to be useful in a lot of different circumstances. So, yes, 100% in an interview setting, when you are asked point blank, tell me about yourself. It's also going to be useful in networking conversations, grabbing coffee with people, meeting people for the first time that you connected with on LinkedIn, or at a networking event or a conference that you went to in person. You're meeting someone for the first time, it's a chance to tell your story. Actually, even if there's not that explicit invitation of tell me about yourself, it's a chance to tell your story. And the other thing I'll say about telling your story is that it becomes more and more comfortable the more you practice it. So also as you're writing and building your story, try to make a point of practicing telling it to people, someone, in the grocery store in line, or an Uber driver or a Lyft driver that you're with in the car, or one of a sibling or a parent or someone in your family that can provide you some feedback and be like, wait a minute, you're leaving out this huge part, or like, what about this side of you that I didn't hear anything about that. So tell it to everyone, tell it to anyone that will listen, because also the more that you tell it, the more it's going to become just kind of like an outline bullet points in the back of your mind. You're not going to have to feel like you're reading a script. A story becomes really helpful in executive engagements too. So once you start your new job, then you have the task of building relationships with everyone around you. That's another great chance to really tell your story. So the story process doesn't end just when you get the job. It's actually a great foundation then for building relationships and being able to accelerate in that job afterward. Your LinkedIn About section and internal positioning. So planning for promotions or lateral moves within a company as you're meeting new people, thinking about working on new teams, the story comes into play. And it really is going to be forward looking rather than nostalgic and backward looking. Okay, so the anatomy of a story. Here's how we're going to actually think about writing out the story. It doesn't start with your job title. Rule number one. It actually starts with what matters to you. It's starting with some of those values that just came up in that peak experience that you were remembering. So when were you at your best? When were you on top of the world? When were you feeling really confident or really fulfilled? The things that came up in that moment are going to actually be the foundation, the headline for your story. We're going to use those values and translate them into work experiences that will provide these pillars that we can then organize our story around. So here's a bit of a visual for what that story might look like. You've got a personal thesis at first. So this could look something like, to date, my career has been a story about building things from scratch while investing in the people and community that I'm building with. Okay, right away I heard she's a 0 to 1. She really likes building. And she really cares about the people that she's building with. So other examples of this could be someone who's really data driven, or someone who is really organized and enjoys like organizing everything in the office or on calendars, or keeping things tidy. It could be making like really complex concepts simple. It could be really focusing on deep relationships. It could be entrepreneurship. There's any number of ways that these could come about. We're going to talk about what a pillar is specifically in just a minute. Within this personal thesis, if you start with your thesis, then you're going to walk people through, I'd usually say 2 to 3 pillars. You personally can have an index of like as many pillars as you want. But for any conversation that you're having, you're going to pull in the pillars of yourself that you feel are best representative for the particular role or the particular person that you're talking to. So, maybe there's, you have 10 to 12 different pillars that you could talk about really passionately, just traits of your personality, traits of your career that you've built over time that really light you up. And then in any given conversation, you're going to bring a selection of those, a curated set of those to the table, and those are going to provide the outline for your story. Within each of those pillars, then, we're going to talk about specific experiences that we've had. This is the evidence. So I consider myself a really entrepreneurial person. I love building things from the ground up. Great. Then you're going to have 3 to 4 experiences, kind of proof points over your career that you're going to infuse into the story that support the idea and give that person that you're talking to confidence that you're not just saying you really care about entrepreneurship, but you actually have done it before and you've proven that you really care about it through your career. We'll talk about experiences in a second as well. Let's start with pillars. So these are 2 to 4 themes that you consistently stand for in action in your career. So these are not aspirational. These are things that you have proven that you have worked in and around for a long time. The examples of this could be building clarity in ambiguity, or leading through change, scaling systems and cutting chaos, making complexity simple for people, or developing people, not just results. One important distinction I do want to highlight is that pillars are earned through experience. So they're not personality traits. We're translating some of the values that came up in your peak experience in that version of your best self now into the workplace. So perhaps one of the values that came up was collaboration or community. Great. What does that look like in the workplace? And how has that come through different roles and jobs that you've had? How have you been successful in driving collaboration or community in the roles and the jobs and the teams that you've worked for? Values tell us what matters to you at your core. That is, again, like the seed of the story. And then the pillar is going to show us how that value shows up in your career. Then for each pillar, you're going to have some experiences. And actually, I want to back up. So right now, if you're working along with me, go ahead and write down a few examples of pillars for yourself. So based on the values that you came up with earlier and the memory that you had earlier of when you were at your best, use that as your source here. What sort of pillars come up for you? What are a couple, maybe you just write down 1 to 2 pillars that you think could be included in your story. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. Okay. Moving forward, let's talk about experiences. So an experience is a moment that demonstrates that pillar in action under real conditions in the course of your career. So this is something that did actually happen to you, or an achievement that you actually had, that ties to the pillars. So take some time now to brainstorm. Your experiences can come from your resume, but they can also come from other parts of life or career. And a lot of times the best experiences actually do come from off of your resume. So a time when you managed a layoff and had to rebuild a team, or a time when you were traveling for work and a certain dynamic came up that you had to manage, or a time when you ran a huge meeting, that resulted in a total success. Maybe that's not a detail that you included in your resume, but it's something that ties to the job that you would like to have going forward. And so it can become a proof point that you use in your story. These experiences, as I keep mentioning this word curation, they are curated. If there's an experience that you've had in your career that you hate, do not bring it into your story. You don't have to repeat that. You don't have to tell anyone that that was part of your story. So focus here on where the sparks are, what really lights you up. When you're considering experiences to include in your story, there's a way to kind of know whether or not it's a good one to include. So consider, what pillar does that experience support? What problem or tension existed when I was doing that thing or achieving that thing? What decision or action did I take? And then what changed as a result? That's kind of a framework for how you can articulate it. If the experience doesn't tie to at least 2 of the pillars you're using to outline your story, don't include it. You're only going for experiences here that really tie to the specific thesis and narrative that you're trying to communicate in this version of your story. So I'll give you a couple of seconds here. Maybe you have tied to the pillar that you came up with earlier, one or two experiences in mind that could support that pillar. And if you're working with me as we go through this, take some time to just jot down notes or ideas that you have around this experience. Okay. Here are sometimes I get a lot of feedback and questions like, how do I think of experience? I can't think of anything. Like I've done so much in my career. Where do I even start? Here's some prompts to help you think of some. So moments where you felt like you were really constrained or under pressure. Like ask yourself, when was I really under a lot of pressure at work? Like when do I remember having a sleepless night or really struggling with something? That can actually lead to an experience that was really powerful for you because you did make it to the other side and you did do that thing and now you can talk about it successfully. Turning points in your leadership style. So if there was something that happened that made you think about leadership in a new or different way, that oftentimes is a great inspiration for an experience. Transitions, pivots, challenges, not just successes. So what did you learn from this? Or how did that shape you? How did this challenge change you as a person? That shows humility in a story. It shows vulnerability. It can actually be a really great way to connect with people really quickly. Any achievements that you are most proud of, absolutely include them. So, $1 million deals that you closed, or meetings that you ran for hundreds of people or thousands of people, like those are all exceptional, very extreme scale events. It could be something as small as you did the first X for a company, or you were promoted in, a certain period of time, or you managed a certain size team or grew a certain size team. Those are also great kind of ways to think about achievement. Any sort of conflict or misalignment that you faced is a great sort of experience to include. Remember, you're the author here. You can frame this to your advantage. So yes, it was a conflict. Yes, it was a challenge or a misalignment. What did you learn from it? How did you come out stronger? And how were you the authority in navigating through that challenge? That's the part where you really did take control and turned a challenging situation into a success. And then just general moments that you really learned from. People that you learned from in your career can also be source of inspiration for these experiences. And you can ask people around you also, where have I had the most impact on your career? That's another great way to kind of get some ideas for this. Remember that some of your strongest experiences for your story don't actually ever make it onto your resume. And people like hearing that because they're going to see your resume in an interview. And so knowing that they're also getting this kind of deeper look into who you are, it builds trust. It can be also a way to quicken the development of a relationship. Okay, so we've talked about a lot in the outline here. We're going to tie it all together. So number one in your story, if you say, Nicole, tell me about yourself. Number one, you're going to introduce your values. And those values are going to be communicated through your pillars. So, for example, I'm someone who's always been driven by creativity and service. Whether I was leading a team or launching a new campaign, what lights me up is helping people find clarity. Okay, from there, then you're going to talk about the experience of you. You have your stories, you have your experiences that you're going to pull into this section. You're going to try to give the listener a taste of what it would be like to work with you. That is communicated both in the content of what you're saying and the way you're saying it. So be yourself, take a deep breath, show up as who you are, and focus on really building that relationship and that connection with the person that you're telling your story to. And then the third part is that you're going to connect it to the role that you're interested in and that you're applying for. So, for example, that's why this opportunity caught my eye. It brings together the exact things that I care most about in this role, just as an example. I'm going to actually read you two examples now of kind of, 20-second stories that could be crafted to give you a feel for what this looks like when it actually comes together. So here's the first one. I'm someone who's always been driven to build things from scratch and bring people along while I do it. Early on, I was the first commercial hire at a pre-seed startup. No playbook, no team, no process. I built the go-to-market function, hired the first reps, and closed our first seven-figure deals through our Series B round. What I learned is that I do my best work in ambiguity. When the path isn't quite drawn, someone has to make something complex simple enough for a room to actually understand it and move forward. That has shown up in every role since, whether I was scaling a team or turning a messy data into a decision that people could act on. So when I saw this role, it caught my eye for a simple reason. It brings together the exact things that I actually care most about: building clarity and helping people do their best work. That obviously was read. As you're putting yours together, you want it to be spoken and you want it to not feel so scripted. But just to give you a sense for how these pieces kind of come together, I'll read you one more. I didn't take a straight path to this work. For a long time, I thought that counted against me. I actually started out as a business assistant, where you learn fast that a plan is worthless if the people carrying it out don't trust you. That really stuck with me. What I care most about doing right now in this point in my career is doing right by my team and leaving things better than I found them. The work I'm proudest of usually looks the same. I get handed something that isn't working. One team I stepped into had lost half its people in a year and stopped believing anything would change. I didn't come in with a reorg, but I spent the first month listening, fixed the two problems everyone was naming, rebuilt from there. Within a year, it was fully staffed and hitting its targets. A few of the people I coached actually went on to lead their own teams. So when I found out about this role, the title actually wasn't what caught my eye, but it was that you're rebuilding something that has been through a hard patch. That's the work that I keep choosing for myself. Those are just a couple of examples of how this can come together in an introductory answer to the tell me about yourself question. As you're thinking about actually doing this yourself in real life, before you go into an interview or before you go into meet someone for the very first time, you have two challenges from here, two pieces of homework. One is to take 30 seconds and really focus on taking a deep breath. You can take 10 deep breaths. You can take as many as you can fit into 30 seconds. You want to really try and connect inward. Know yourself. Get in touch with that version of you that is at your best. And in a lot of coaching contexts, we call that your inner leader. So who is like the wisest, kind of 30,000-foot version of yourself that is thinking about what is best for you, knows how things are going to work out in the future for in your best interest? What does that person want from you? And how do they want you to show up into this interview that you're heading into? Another way to really bring this to life is to actually pull a photo or a song or a trinket, something tangible that reminds you of your inner leader. And your inner leader can be as simple as that moment that you remembered earlier in the call when you were at your best, when you were feeling really successful or really fulfilled. So if you pull a photo of that moment or something you had with you in that moment and just put it on your desk or have it available to you throughout the day, you're going to start to train your brain to remember that really confident, fulfilled, crushing it version of yourself. And that's what we want to do, because that version of yourself already knows your story. This isn't something that we're creating for the first time. It's not something that's outside of you or that you're writing, for someone else. This is really just an articulation of who you already are. It's something that you recognize and you put together. And when you claim it with confidence, people then know how to help you. And as you're going through your job search and you're telling your story to so many people, there are going to be a lot of people around you that want to help you and don't quite know how. And so whether you're in an interview or you're in a networking conversation, having the story together is going to help you be clear about who you are and what you stand for. And then other people around you can start to take that and say, okay, where could I fit this person into my team or my company or to other opportunities that might come across my desk? So piece of homework number one is try to find something that reminds you of your inner leader. Take 30 seconds to breathe and connect with yourself before you go into any of these high stakes conversations. And then the second part of your homework is to actually go out and try to write your story with this outline as your guide. And with that, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you're welcome to. I'm happy to extend a call to anyone on the webinar today or anyone that is watching this recording. If you'd like to have a complimentary roadmap session with me to talk about your next steps, what you can really do and put into action to write your own story, I'm happy to offer that. You can find me at hello@nicole-kelley.com. And then my website is there as well. if you want to check that out. Um, but with that, I will turn it over to Garrett, and we get to see how this all complements the Callings platform and the tech that exists beneath the hood.
That was fantastic, Nicole. And several people have asked whether you'd be willing to share your slides. When we follow up and provide the replay of this event, we can include a link to that if you're willing.
Awesome. Yes, definitely.
Awesome. And before I jump in, somebody had mentioned you talked early on about burnout as part of the gap,
Mhm.
and they just wanted to confirm it was okay to actually talk about that.
I think it is. I'm a big proponent of that, framing it in the context of what, so the awareness first of what caused that burnout. What about yourself? What context were you in? Assuming that you're now doing things differently, right? So you can use it as like a proof point. Like, I went down this path and here's what I found. And so now, because I've learned that, I have committed to going down this other path instead. It kind of shows someone like a savviness and a wisdom about you. Like, you're not someone that is going to burn themselves out because you know how to handle your responsibilities and your time and your energy and all of that. So I actually think it can be framed as a strength and as a learning. Again, like when you're thinking about the experiences, talk about your learnings, talk about your challenges, like be open about that and frame it in a way that's to your advantage because you are the author of this story and you get to talk about it any way that you want.
That's fantastic. Well, I think
Cool.
you nailed all the other questions that I saw, so I can jump in.
Great.
But again,
Awesome.
that was fantastic, Nicole. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Of course.
Um, so, now a word from your sponsor. So my name is Garrett Rice, as I mentioned at the beginning, and our company, Callings.ai, to try and use what Nicole mentioned as a process. Our story is um, that my co-founder Philippe and I met while being members of the boot camp that Nicole leads, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do next. And both of us had long histories of building software, wanting to do things creatively and entrepreneurially, and we looked at all the pain in the job seeking space. And we realized that most of the solutions out there are built for the hiring side, they're built for social media, but they're not really built for people in the throes of a job hunt. And at the same time, the modern job hunt has changed dramatically. It's much more difficult now to get a job than it's ever been. There's a number of reasons for that. Some of it is the fact that jobs have gone global with things like remote and hybrid work. Some of it is because technology has made the signal to noise ratio lower because it's so easy to apply for jobs, kind of like the way college students can now apply to every college in the United States when they're applying because it's just clicking boxes. It's similar in terms of job hunting, and so the average job post now gets 250 or more applicants. Um, and it goes on and on. And so we've built a tool that is built around managing the entirety of your job process. And we think that that falls into three buckets. The first bucket is the one that Nicole is talking about today, which is you need to know yourself and articulate your value out into the market. You need to tell your story. The second thing, oh, and by the way, part of that is personal branding and advertising, because there's a sales component to this to the modern job hunt. The second thing is finding opportunities, and that might be job posts. And we have about 14 million job posts a day on the platform. And we try and source those only from hiring company sites when we can. So our jobs are fresh, they're updated 600,000 a day. Um, and and then we also provide ways to target companies and people at organizations where there may not be a job post. So that's all about opportunity and finding ways to get in and find real matches for you. The third thing is networking. 70 to 80% of successful job hunts include some type of networking. If a human being recommends you for a job, you're 4 to 7 times more likely to be considered than if nobody does. And that's simply because human beings do the hiring. And so if you have a human being advocating for you, people are more willing to listen. And of course, all of this ties in with that initial first step of telling your story. So with that, I want to share with you that all of you have a chance to play around with Callings without any risk. We'll give you premium access for 30 days to Callings. If you type in Callings.ai/bootcamp, when you go, if you use that URL to go to our site, when you register, we will then automatically give you 30 days. If anybody has a problem, you can reach out. I'll put my email into the chat at the end of the session, and you can email me. But we'd happily have you try it for the first 30 days. And so you can try that out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a few things about the platform. Um, Here's what the platform looks like. The core of the platform is the job tracker. One of the first things we built is we talked to a lot of job seekers and everybody was building their own spreadsheets. So we built a very powerful CRM-like tool for managing all the jobs you're pursuing in one place. Searching, sorting, organizing. You can even have a Kanban view where you can drag things into different progress stages, so you know exactly where you're at with your job hunt. Um, so I mentioned storytelling, and I want to focus on that. So one of the things that we discovered in talking with job seekers is it's oftentimes it's difficult to put all of the answers to the storytelling and your background and your history top of mind to generate that information. And so what we did is we built a thing called My Insights. So when you log on to Callings, we're going to ask you to upload, and you'll see this interface. Upload your resume or your LinkedIn profile or copy paste text from your resume. We do not use that information to market to you. We don't sell that information. That information isn't used to train models. It's just your information, but it activates the entire platform. And once you do that, we create this thing called My Insights. And My Insights is all about helping you understand you and tell your story. And I think that using Nicole's process, we can give you material to help you get to where she's suggesting that you go. And so let me show you what I mean by that. The first thing that we do is we generate a series of reports just based on the information you provided. A goals report, a market fit report, an ideal job report, brand elements, and then we'll even do a market report for where you're located. We also generate a questionnaire for you, and it's multiple choice questions, and it's all about you. And if you take the time to go in and answer these questions, and they're all things like, what, so this resume is for somebody in the biotech area. It says, what disease areas do you most want to build your next, want to build for your next 2 to 3 years? And you can select the answers that make sense for you. If you take the time to do that, then these reports become incredibly powerful because it's about you, from answers from you, your resume, et cetera. And here are things that are going to help you, I think, with what Nicole suggested. The first thing is goals. When you're starting a job hunt, it's really essential to understand what's most important to you. And so we provide a full report here. I'm going to click in on this. And we, based on your answers and your information, we show you the priorities that you're expressing. And by the way, as I say, for all these reports, if it doesn't ring true for you, then it might be a sign that your resume or the answers you're providing are not in alignment with what your belief is. So in this case, for David here, the roles and the compensation are the most important things in terms of his job search goal. That's important because if those aren't matched by the opportunities, then he should be looking somewhere else. And so this is also helpful for you to think about what's really important to you and why. The second thing that we do is a full market fit report. So what we'll do is a full report on you historically and what markets you've been in, probably why that's been successful for you and what's worked. Where you align with demand is an important thing in this report. We study all the different verticals in the economy to be able to share those things that we know are growing and are hiring. What shifts should you prepare for? Is it sort of an over horizon look at what markets make sense? and most likely upside paths in the next 3 to 5 years. We then call out the sectors that are hiring people with backgrounds like yours that are growing. We do a detailed dive on where we get that information from and why you're a good match. And then we even call out the companies that make sense in this space that we know are hiring. And if you like one, you can just hit Save Target Company. So how I would use this as part of Nicole's process is this is you against the marketplace, and it might help highlight for you stories about your past that make sense based on where the market's going, right? So this helps. It's sort of a orthogonal way for you to think about how to tell your story from the standpoint of who's hiring. We also generate an ideal job report, and this is our best take on based on everything you told us, what an ideal job would look like for you. And this also hopefully will identify for you things that you've expressed in your materials and your answers that are in alignment with those deep-seated needs and skills and talents that you have. We've had a lot of people mention to us that they wish they could apply to this job, so we sometimes will get it right. If it's not right, then you know that there's a misalignment again with the materials versus what you're thinking about, and this will help you to fix that misalignment. Um, we, by the way, take this ideal job and use it as parts of the materials we use to semantically search against 14 million jobs to find you job matches. But it's all material that helps you understand your story so that you can go through the process Nicole mentioned. The next one is, I think, the most important, which is we take a stab at creating brand elements for you. And these are the marketing ways of telling parts of your story: a 20-second elevator pitch, a longer 2-minute pitch, a professional summary that you can use or rewrite. We call out headlines. Based on everything you told us, these are the three things that we think best describe you as a headline. What makes you unique? What top 10 skills have we identified that you have? And then going through what you've provided us, what are the top 10 achievements from our perspective? Um, and this is a cheat sheet. This is a marketing outline for you that many of our users download this and study it like an actor's playbook or use it to inform the type of deep stories that they want to tell about themselves. Because oftentimes, and it's not an easy process in the interviewing and job seeking process, people are going to hit you with questions and you have to have a pre-baked answer. That's how you seem more confident, more natural, is when you know what the answer is going to be. And so one way to do that is to have a lot of material and practice it and study it so that you can use this material to answer those questions and tell your story. And so these are all provided right inside of the My Insights section. By the way, we also do a job market report in a bunch of different geography areas in the United States, which you can then use to figure out, for example, what the job market's looking like that you're going after in your locality. And these are updated every week. So this is all about you in the market, you in the job situation. And I think these are excellent ways for you to start telling your story or give you the materials to tell the story that as Nicole mentioned in terms of her process. Um, by the way, we have a thing called down here at the bottom under Promote Yourself, where we go a step further, which is once you've nailed these principles, we can help you edit a public marketing page on you, which allows you to, for example, have this powerful an illustrative graphic that takes everything we know about you and puts it into a action figure. By the way, we have a whole bunch of other options. For example, here's the infographic style, and we actually provide things like copper plate or a baseball card or movie poster. This is trying to solve the problem of it. Usually you only get 3 to 5 seconds with somebody for them to show whether they're interested or not. So again, this is taking those materials and your story and building it into a website. This is all editable. You can use, if you click on anything and edit it, you can prompt in the left-hand side or rewrite it here so that it directly reflects exactly what you want to say. Here's what it looks like when it's finalized. And many of our users have hit the give a shout out button and posted it on places like LinkedIn and gotten thousands of views. And this is the top part of the funnel of your job search, which is you need to get noticed. You need people to recognize you as a skilled professional with a lot of value. We also have this introduce button, so you can send this page to your friends. And if they want to help you, then they have a really easy way to click on this, find people that you're trying to meet, and then with one click, we'll help draft an outreach message so they can introduce you. And so this is all part of the workflow of networking and getting the word out and promoting and advertising your brand. So that's built into the platform. Another extension of telling your story is we have my posts, and this is a way of taking those themes that she talked about and creating social media posts that you can then put onto LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. Um, why is this important? It turns out LinkedIn will generally only boost in the recruiter searches those people that are active on the platform. And so this gives you a chance to become a thought leader in areas of importance, and that will make you more discoverable on places like LinkedIn. And the key to all of this is what is your authentic story? By the way, we have a lot of AI in here, but most of our tools allow you to edit and write using a word processor for the content that we help generate so that you always have a chance of putting it in your own words. Um, we do that, for example, with the resume. We can help you rewrite your resume, but that's all based on you being able to type in and make changes yourself, in addition to prompting changes here. So there's a lot more. I'll just highlight these and then let you guys go. We have a powerful AI job search that allows you to search using your resume or in native language searches, 14.4 million jobs as of this week on our platform. So that's the opportunity set. You can target companies and find people that work at them. That's part of the target companies feature. And then we have a ton of networking tools, finding recruiters that recruit people like you, events and associations for people like you, all based on your background. So there's a lot more in here. We meet every Monday and have a group session called the Calling Circle where people can network, commune. We do best practices in job seeking, all part of the service for callings. So with that, we're 2 minutes over, so I will stop talking. And in answer to one person's question, we will publish a recording of this session for you to look at. That should be up in the next couple days. Nicole has agreed to share her presentation, so I will include that in the email that I send out. And if you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat. But we are all here to help you in your job search. So really appreciate you all joining today. And Nicole, I can't thank you enough for a fantastic session.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here and appreciate everyone's time who wants to learn and hear more from us. So thanks for being here too.
All right. Take care, everybody. Happy hunting.